just railroad that.
Citizen comment time?
Yes, sir.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, council members.
I don't know.
Robert Grizzle, 6400 Narramore Way, Lula, Georgia. I've got a couple of comments to make. You know, my neighbors was like, wow, we saw code enforcement at your house. I think most people around here know that we've kept a pretty good yard for, see, 27 going on 28 years now. He wanted me to, I do think it was tacky that they came knowing we was having my granddaughter's birthday. Most people here knew it was her birthday. During that time, that's when he came, then wanted me to leave them while they was in the pool by leave them in the pool by themselves. I didn't want to do that, so it needed to be noted that of our code enforcement officer. Now again, I think there's a lot of people in this room now that I was one up here at this very podium right here speaking for code enforcement, but without government overrun and abuse of power. So I'd like to talk about it. You know, one thing is move the truck, the old Ford truck. You know, I'm okay with that. It's on the right of way. No, we're not in compliance. I have no trouble moving that truck, Mr. Bramblett. So it'll be moved soon. But the next thing he told me, he had a problem with my chickens. Now I know it wasn't my neighbors. It was Mr. Gene Bramblett that said I'm not in compliance.
I'm not attacking you, okay?
But chickens are allowed on residential property, first of all. A limited number of chickens in almost every city in the state of Georgia. You can go to downtown Atlanta, and if there's a residence, not an apartment building, they can have chickens. They are allowed to have backyard chickens. You go to Alpharetta, one of the most affluent places in the state of Georgia, even more so than Buckhead. There's chickens on residential property. Hall County's charter, you look at it, chickens are allowed on residential property. Now, my property is unique. I know I've got agricultural and residential, but my chickens have been there for more than 25 years. And we've had code enforcement for most of those years. Calvin, the young lady that followed him, we even had a code, Calvin come out on something wanting us to move something. We complied. We was out of compliance, we complied. Those chickens have been there with city manager on my property, 3 different mayors on my property, all through this time. We don't live in the Communist Republic of China, Mr. Bramlett. You're not a KGB agent. He's running roughshod around here. I know it was him. And when we know who it is, we're allowed to speak it. We've never had an issue until now. My neighbors is not an issue with my chickens. They don't bother my neighbors. Matter of fact, my neighbors like my chickens. This should be the very person, my city councilman for my district should be the person I should be able to go to for help. But I can't go to that person for help. I can't go to my city council member for help because he's the one reporting. Now, right between us is arguably the worst looking yard in Lula. I've rode around all the back streets. I've talked to all my neighbors. Have you seen code enforcement down there? No. But it says friend. Sofas in the yard, inoperable trucks in the yard, building material thrown everywhere, a second driveway cut in without a permit. That wouldn't even be allowed. He couldn't get a permit for to have that second driveway cut in. He's riding around taking pictures of everybody's property. We've had a good city to live in up here, a wonderful city. Let's don't let this administration make it different. We're already getting bad press in the Daily Times, dirty politics. It's clear who called code enforcement on the councilwoman here. That's not how we've done things in Lula before. You know, come out and say, hey, Robert, can we do this? Sending code enforcement out to maybe try to do something that the chickens have been there for 25 years. Everybody, no, they've not been hidden from nobody. Never has been. Like I said, 3 administrations have been to my property. Nobody's ever said anything negative about the chickens. But however, again, chickens are allowed on residential property. all over the state of Georgia. Maybe because we live in the poultry capital of the world, I don't know. But those chickens don't get out and bother nobody. I know I'm not the only one that's had a problem with this new administration of our city council member in my district. We think something needs to be done about it. And if something isn't done about it, we'll do a recall. There's plenty of people ready to start signing a petition, because the last 6 months has been nothing like Lula's been. And I've been here 27 years. I know I'm not from Lula, but I've been here 27 years. I'm getting almost to be a Lulian. And as far as to the code enforcement officer, Mr. Doug Forrester, running roughshod, threatening people. I asked him a simple question, and he threatened to cite me for obstruction of justice. First of all, he's not a peace officer.
Just don't attack anybody.
Excuse me?
Just don't attack anybody personally.
Well, I'm just saying our code enforcement officer threatened to, he turns that off, please. Threatened to cite me for obstruction of justice for asking a question. Threatening me how he didn't have to give me time to do anything, that he could cite me right then and bring me before a judge. You know, I've got business property in other cities and counties, so I deal with code enforcement. I've never seen a code enforcement officer threaten somebody that they will take them in front of a judge right then, because everybody has a chance to correct the situation. They have that right living in the United States of America, because we're not in the Communist Republic of China or Moscow. Threatening manners. That ain't how you're supposed to run that position. It's conduct unbecoming of an officer, and I do want to file a formal complaint. Now, how do I do that in the city of Lula and know that it's going to actually be looked into? Because I'm not the only one that he's threatened. I've done a lot of driving around since the 6th. Talked to a lot of people. I mean, it's amazing some of the stuff. I can't talk on hearsay. I'm not going to do it. But fire department being called out to wash a little bit of mud off the road that children got on it. That fire department, as I spoke here against the subdivision, that fire department could be used somewhere else instead of washing mud off of a road. There could be a life in danger at that time. I think this all needs to be looked into. I do want to file formal charges of a complaint for this. There's no way to be treating the citizens of Lula. I've stood up here and asked for code enforcement, but I didn't ask for something like that to be threatened, for other people to be threatened and feel like they feel in Lula right now. I want this looked into. I think people need to step back and start looking at laws on the books. So I would like to see a law on the books prior to July the 6th of 2022 at 2 p.m. that shows that Lula in the city limits does not allow chickens. Because, like I said, 3 administrations have been to my property, and there's been chickens there. We've only had one city manager. I'm not calling him out, but he's been to my property because I've called them out because there's been busted water lines, and I'm the one that reported that. I look out for the city. We wanted to avoid busting a property, a water line ourselves, so I called Mr. Burgess to come out because I didn't want to wind up busting a water line, excuse me.
Amen.
Didn't want to do that, did we? I've always been willing to work with the city. I don't think anybody in this room that knows me can say otherwise. I love my neighbors. I love living in Lula. I'm always here to help everybody, and I've always showed that. If you don't believe that, ask every police officer that lives in this city also what I do for them. This is an embarrassment to have to come up here. This whole deal right here is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to be in the Daily Times talking about dirty politics. It needs to stop. And we, the citizens of Lula, can stop it. It needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Robert, I'd ask you if you would put your formal complaint in writing, I can assure you we'll take it through the attorney and he'll make sure that it's followed up on.
Thank you, Dennis.
And I have something.